好，歡迎大家嚟到今日警方嘅記者招待會啊！咁首先呢，就等我介紹一下今日嘅講者先。咁喺大家嘅正中間呢，咁就係港島總區指揮官郭柏聰先生。
Mr. Kwok Pak-chung, Regional Commander of Hong Kong Island. On his right-hand side, we have Mr. Derek Chen, Deputy Chief Fire Officer Headquarters from FSD. And then on his left, we have Mr. Jie Chan-chung, Chief Superintendent of PPRB. And next to him, Mr. Kong Wing-chung, Senior Superintendent of PPRB. On the far left hand, we have Madam Zhang Po-yue, Chief Inspector of Family Conflict and Sexual Violence Policy Unit. The speakers will give a brief introduction, and then we'll open the floor to questions. So please identify yourself before you speak, and each may ask up to 3 questions. Without further ado, I give the floor to Mr. Kwok. Good afternoon. Welcome to the press briefing. We would like to explain to you the outcome of an appeal against the decision of public activity tomorrow, and also the procedures for dealing with bullying at school campuses and sex offences. And we also have Mr. Chen, Mr. Derek Chen, Deputy Chief Fire Officer from FSD, to share with us some brutal behavior by some protesters and the impact on emergency services, and how protesters have improperly used the firefighting facilities, and also the discovery of dangerous objects at sites of demonstrations. Later on, the police received an application for a public rally and march to be held in the Central Western District tomorrow. After assessing the risks involved and based on public safety, public order, and protection of other persons' freedoms and rights, the police issued an objection to the rally yesterday. The organizer lodged an appeal subsequently, and the appeal board unanimously refused the appeal application, and the decision by the CP has been upheld. In other words, the rally at Cheddar Garden and then march to Chinese Liaison Office is objected to. The police has always respected the community's rights to peaceful assemblies and freedom of expression. We've issued, over the years, over 90% of the applications have been approved. However, we have the duty to safeguard the rule of law and public safety. This is of utmost importance, and therefore we have to make a responsible decision and do our level best to protect lives and properties of the community. So we will only object to an application after very serious considerations. And then the appeal board also agreed to our justifications and have decided to object to the appeal as well. According to intelligence we received, some radical protesters are going to make use of every opportunity available to carry out violent behavior that would seriously threaten public safety. Such behavior is going to seriously undermine the safety of participants. And all members present, including police officers and members of the press, will see their lives and properties seriously threatened. We have seen how protesters have used deadly weapons. Please take note of the monitor next to me, including petrol bombs, corrosive liquids, fire caused by compressed gas and fume discs and even air guns. They used that to attack police officers. And reliable intelligence shows that radical protesters would use bows and arrows and fishing guns and also nail guns powered by bombs, and they may also need to use combustible dust guns, and they may use explosive and dust explosive, and even use UAS to attack people taking part in the protest. We don't rule out the possibility of using appropriate force to stop such attacks. So in the confusion, all people present may be affected, and we hope no one will stay in places where there is the risk of such danger. And I appeal to journalists here. Now, in carrying out your duties, you have to take care of your own safety. The police want to stress that the appeal board has categorically refuted the application or opposed the application for the public rally and march tomorrow. Anyone who takes part in an illegal assembly is an offense liable to a maximum imprisonment of 5 years. The police appeal to members of the public to cut ties with violent protesters, and you should stay far away from violent protests for your own safety. And should there be any offences being committed, the police will intervene in a timely manner, and all suspects would be caught and punished. However, we have seen appeals online that they are not joining any rally or march tomorrow, but they may go to Causeway Bay for shopping and go to see the flowers at Victoria Park, and there may also be religious processions that do not require any approval. Let me say that under the Public Order Ordinance, only rallies carried out for religious reasons will be exempted, but not marches. That is, organizers have to notify the police before such marches can take place. The police will take note of all circumstances and will enforce the law in a timely manner, and depending on the actual circumstances will decide the means to enforce the law. No excuse is of importance. The most important thing is for members of the public to understand the law and do not test it. We urge members to take note of announcements by different media and stay away from places where there are violent protests so as to ensure safety. Now, even if you happen to pass by a place with chaos and violence, you must leave as soon as possible for the sake of your own safety. I now give the floor to Mr. Zhe for an update of enforcement action. Well, around 2 late evening, there were people outside Sha Tin police station, and then after repeated warnings, we started to arrest people, and we arrest a male, 40 years with a laser gun, 21-year-old, and we arrested another girl aged 15 because she has breached the child protection order. She had to appear in court in Kowloon Magistracy this morning. Around 11 last night, there were over 100 people outside Samshuipo police station. After repeated warnings, we arrested 18, and 14 men and 4 female aged between 30 and 41 were arrested.
The police seized weapons such as walking sticks and radiation guns from the arrested persons, and the arrestees were charged with taking part in an unlawful assembly, possession of offensive weapons, criminal damage, and failure to produce identity document, and they were arrested. At about 12 midnight today at Kwai Fong, when the New Territories South Emergency Unit returned to the Kwai Chung police station, they were attacked by 2 protesters with laser guns, and one of the police officers felt a burning sensation in his eye, and as such, the 2 people were arrested by the police, and a radiation gun was seized. They were arrested under the offense of assault or assault on police officer with a criminal intent. They are allowed to go on bail, and they would report to the police again in September. And arrests have been made at recent times, and since last night, 7 more people have been arrested. The first was the case in which the police headquarters was surrounded. On the 21st of June, 1 male and 1 female were arrested. They were both aged 22. They were alleged to incite others or take part in an unauthorized assembly. And for the vandalism of LegCo on the 1st of July, 1 22-year-old male was arrested on criminal intimidation, as well as for staying or entering the precincts of chamber. And in Shengshui, a 28-year-old was arrested, and he was alleged of assaulting a police officer. And for the Newtown Plaza incident on the 14th of June, a 31-year-old male was arrested for obstructing the performance of duty by a police officer, and in the Yuen Long attack on 21st of July, 158-year-old man for taking part in an unlawful assembly. The police has zero tolerance towards all violent cases. All our arrests were based on ample evidence. In our operation yesterday, there was no record of injuries to police officers. No ammunition was used. Before I hand over to Derek Chan, Deputy Chief Fire Officer, I'd like to offer some extra figures related to the police force. According to the police service pledge, with regards to 999 emergency calls, the average response time in the Island and Kowloon districts are 9 minutes and 15 minutes for the new territories. The response time is based on the time between the receiving of calls by the 999 console and when police officers arrive at the scene. And 180 emergency requests fell short of our service pledge in June, and 220 cases in July and 320 cases in August so far. We stress that this only constitutes a very small percentage of all 999 requests we receive, and it shows that the force has stood fast at their posts. But in the past 3 months, we also saw an obvious rise in the number of cases in which we could not meet the pledge. And in August, we failed to meet the standard in 324 cases, while in August last year was only 204, so the rise is 50%. Most affected cases occurred during Saturdays, Sundays, and public holidays. With regards to cases in which we could not meet the service pledge, even one case is too many. If we are a minute late, the safety of the public might be affected. Protests have turned increasingly violent since June, and the police has increasingly become a target. Police stations were frequently surrounded and officers have been assaulted. 22 police stations and 131 police vehicles were damaged to different extents. I will now hand over to Mr. Derek Chan. Thank you. Friends of the media, good afternoon. With regards to recent protests and public events, the Fire Services Department would like to point out some observations, and we would like to issue some reminders as well. In recent public events and protests, protesters occupied roads in different areas of Hong Kong, especially wildcat occupations of roads, and that led to serious congestions in many main thoroughfares, and our emergency services have been affected. The FSD stressed that our frontline officers provide rescue and firefighting services, and time is of utmost importance. If there's any delay, the fires might become more serious, and the injured might might be put in jeopardy as a result of such delay. We also found that protesters hurled petrol bombs, smoke bombs, and other dangerous goods at the offices, and they even committed arson, and some frontline reporters were affected. Such acts were extremely irresponsible, and they were very dangerous. Apart from jeopardizing the safety of those at the scene, if the fires spread to surrounding buildings, there could be mass casualties. The FSD have great concern on the situation and concerns over public safety. We also found that in some public assemblies, some people inappropriately removed fire safety or fire services equipment, including hose reels and extinguishers. The purpose of such equipment is to prevent fire or fight fire if they are used or removed or even damaged. The fire hazards at surrounding buildings or premises might escalate, and in case of a fire, then people inside could not be protected. Spraying carbon dioxide gas at other people would also cause danger. We urge protesters to practice restraint with consideration to the safety of citizens. Blockage of roads should stop, and all acts of arson or hurling petrol bombs must also stop. Other citizens should stay away from the relevant areas. They should remain vigilant and observe personal safety. Thank you very much. I would now talk about the situation of bullying on campus. The police is aware that the recent clashes and incidents would affect the sentiments or emotions of school staff and students, and there could be cases of bullying due to different political views, and there could even be violence. The most common crimes related include wounding, criminal intimidation, blackmail, etc. These are all serious crimes, and we noticed that there are views online that target students and teachers, and the families and children of police officers are being targeted for bullying. The police stress that such acts would not be tolerated. With regards to school bullying, the police has in place measures in place with schools to investigate cases of bullying. The police have 117 school liaison officers to maintain close communication with primary and secondary schools in Hong Kong. If schools and parents observe cases of bullying, for example, if students feel depressed for no reason, they should make inquiries to liaison officers. If there is a case of bullying, the liaison officers would defer the cases to the crime investigation units. We urge parents and schools to call 999 if such cases arise. We saw there were cases that target the children and families of police officers. These are screenshots from online media, and it's obvious that they target the children and families of police officers. They are called dogs or puppies, and they talked about division of job of work to decide how they are going to attack these relatives or children of police officers. The police have established a mechanism with the Education Bureau. If families of police officers endure bullying, they can inform the personnel wing, and the staff relations unit would provide appropriate support, and the cases would be referred to the relevant unit.
Lastly, the police will continue to enhance liaison with schools and the Education Bureau and take necessary precautionary and enforcement actions. I'd like to talk about how the police handle sexual violence. Recently, we have received accusations from female protesters about rape and sexual assault. We strongly refute such accusations. We have very established procedures and policies to ensure that arrested persons are properly protected, and we take all sex violence cases very seriously, and we have measures. For instance, we arrange for police officers of the same sex as the victims to carry out investigation in a place with privacy, and to investigate as soon as possible to avoid embarrassment to victims. In approaching victims, we will refer crisis intervention services offered by NGOs, and with their consent, we will make referrals to ensure that victims can be given appropriate support. And so long as there is no interference with course of justice, we ensure that the victim is accompanied by an appropriate adult when we carry investigation. And depending on the severity of the case, we will immediately hand over the case to the criminal investigation unit, so as to reduce the need for for the victim to repeatedly give an account of the incident. And under Section 79B and C of the Criminal Procedures Ordinance, for minors under 17 years old or those who are mentally incapacitated, the court can accept video recording as a way for giving evidence, and there can also be live TV link to give evidence, to reduce the pressure on the need for juveniles to give evidence in court. And starting from April last year, the Section 79B of the ordinance would allow designated complainants of sex offences to give evidence under TV, using a live TV link or behind a screen, to save them from embarrassment. We will give them ample protection, and we appeal to the community. Anyone who have been subject to sexual violence should report to the police at once, and we will arrest all the persons concerned at once. Once again, the appeal board has ruled that the appeal has failed, and the organizer has also said that the activity will be cancelled. Now, tomorrow, if members of the public take part in a rally, then they risk breaching Hong Kong laws. And so before you do anything, do think twice. The police urge members of the public to cut ties with violent protesters so that you can stay away from violence and for your own safety.
Now I will do a summary in English. The police prohibited a public meeting and objected to public processions proposed to be held tomorrow, that is 31st of August. The organizer filed an appeal, but the appeal board on public meeting and processions rejected it and upheld our decisions this morning. We are pleased with and respect the ruling. I must emphasize our objections is in the interest of public safety and public order, as well as protections of rights and freedom of others. We respect citizens' right to assembly and freedom of expression. Police are also duty-bound to preserve public peace and protect life and property. To prevent potential public danger arising from this proposed public event, we make this deliberate decision. The organizer has stated earlier today that they would cancel the public meeting and procession. We appeal to all members of the public not to participate in any unauthorized public events tomorrow. Since the appeal board has upheld police decisions to ban the proposed public gathering, participating in an unauthorized assembly is an offence under Sections 18 of Public Order Ordinance, Chapter 245 of the Hong Kong laws. The maximum penalty is 5 years imprisonment. We are also aware that some online comments that promote a so-called stroll in Causeway Bay or a visit to the Victoria Park to appreciate flowers, or even to do a rally in the name of religion. Some even call for this free moving around in the designated area. No matter what excuses these people use, police will enforce the law impartially. We will take into considerations of the actual situations and to take whether immediate interventions, timely enforcement, or pro-event enforcement. We strongly appeal to members of the public to refrain from taking part in any unauthorized gathering. And about arrest figures, now I will give you a brief update on the arrest figures. In a disorderly incident in Sham Shui Po last night, police arrested 18 people aged between 13 to 41, consisting of 14 males and 4 females. Their offences include unlawful assembly, possessions of offensive weapons, and criminal damage. And in another incident in Sha Tin last night, we arrested one 21-year-old male for possession of offensive weapon. In the small hours today in Kwun Tong, 1 male and 1 female were arrested for pointing laser beams at police officers. As for further arrests made for previous offences, 7 more people were arrested since last night. In conclusion, I have made it very clearly that participating in an unauthorized assembly is an offence under the Hong Kong laws. We appeal to all members of the public to refrain from all unlawful acts or breach of the peace. We also hope you will make a clear break with all acts of violence and stay away from locations where violent clashes may take place. Thank you.
好，問題時間，每位最多問3條咋。
Q&A, each reporter can only ask up to 3 questions. The gentleman in white. I'm from Tai Kung Pao. The first question is, we understand that Joshua Wong and Alex Chow were arrested this morning and had already appeared in court. I'd like to ask about Andy Chan. He was also arrested. He was arrested at the airport last night. Was there any fear of his absconding? And this morning, Tsuen Wan District Commander issued a notice, and some police officers were shouted at by medical healthcare staff, and they were not given any chairs. Have you reflected this to the hospital authority? You have gradually arrested young and well-known leaders, activist leaders. Now, will you continue to arrest young dissidents who are also university students? This morning, today I will chair the Q&A session. I'll take the first question, and then Mr. Kong the second, and then Mr. Kong the last.
Like we mentioned at the beginning of our speech, the Triad and Organized Crime Squad arrested a male in Aberdeen for taking part in an assembly or inciting an unlawful assembly. A male surnamed Wong was arrested, and subsequently a female surnamed Chow was arrested for taking part in an unlawful assembly. And This afternoon, they made a first court appearance at the Eastern Magistrates Court, and since the cases have appeared on court, it's not appropriate for us to comment. And the 24-year-old male surnamed Chan was arrested at Hong Kong International Airport for 2 offences, including rioting and assault on a police officer. He is currently being detained for investigation. Since the case is being investigated, we cannot divulge details of the arrest. I will now hand over to Mr. Kong. As to whether our officers faced rude treatment at hospitals, since we don't have information on hand, we cannot confirm that. But what is certain is that our police officers often have to perform duty in hospitals, especially when we have to monitor arrested persons in hospital. Since they are arrestees, we have to ascertain their safety. As to the relationship between our officers and hospital staff, again, I stress that a healthy working relationship requires mutual respect. And since we have to perform certain duties in hospitals, we should treat each other with respect. And there is a mechanism in place. If their staff are dissatisfied with the acts of our police officers, or if we are impolite, there is a mechanism in place for us to exchange views, as well as details of incidents. I'll now hand over to Mr. Kwok. You mentioned that certain people were arrested today. Would people of similar backgrounds be arrested tomorrow? As you know, the people arrested today were related to incidents that already occurred. As to what would happen tomorrow, of course, we will make deployments and we will continue to collect intelligence. But in our operations, we would not target any individuals. We would examine where crime might occur tomorrow, especially for mass events. But we urge citizens not to test the law. We would not tolerate any violence. SCMP.
Hi, I have several questions from the SCMP. First question relates to the number of arrests that you have made over the last 48 hours. I would like to ask that I know that these cases are being handled right now, so you can't disclose so many details. But one thing I'm sure you can talk about is the timing, because some people have questioned the timing of these mass arrests so close to the big rally planned for tomorrow and also the beginning of school term. So how do you explain the timing? Why do you make so many high-profile arrests at this very sensitive, politically sensitive stage? My second question relates to one very simple confirmation. There has been reports about a legislative councillor, Mr. Zheng Chongtai, being arrested. So can you confirm that, whether or not he has already been detained and what is his situation now? And my third question is about also some online allegations about actually made by somebody arrested by the police earlier, Mr. Ventus Lau, who has been involved in organizing a Kwun Tong rally before. He has said online that the police has actually, in one of the operations, because they know beforehand that there will be some actions to take down the smart lampposts during that Kwun Tong rally. So they have actually sprayed some fluorescent on the outer layer of the smart lampposts so that it will be easier for the government laboratory officers and also the relevant police officers to investigate whether or not they are involved in the taking down of the lamppost, so that actually happened. So we would also know if the police has any explanation for that. Thank you.
I'll answer the first two questions, and I will pass the floor to Mr. Kwong to attempt to the third question. And for the second question first, before I came into this press conference room, I have no idea the arrest of Mr. Cheng, so I may need to give you an update after the press conference. And while for the first question, basically, timing of arrest does not dictate our investigation. And we will arrest the person as soon as we have gathered sufficient evidence to prove his or her offense. The allegation that we time our arrest is totally false. There are indeed public order events every weekend in the past 2 months, so making arrest today does not make any implication, basically. And I would like to hope the public will not lose sight of the crux of the issue. The crux is very simple. If someone breaks the law, the police will bring him or her to justice. Police are duty bound to preserve the public safety and order. Enforcing the law is our responsibilities. And please do not give excuse for those offenders. Thank you.
Yep, concerning the last question, first of all, I do not have any information on whether what you mentioned, fluorescent materials being coated on the lamppost. But I have to stress here that whoever damaged the public property, for example, the lampposts, are obviously in breach of the law, and there's no one to incite him to do so. If he decides to do so, he has to bear the legal consequences. And that's it of my answer. Thanks.
想問翻第一個問題，想問翻其實咧警方今日嗰個搜捕名單其實究竟有幾多人？因為其實除咗即係之前眾志成員啊、區議員啊、前港大學生會會長啱啱鄭松泰亦都被拉啦。
其實警方喺咧831之前 ，the student union chairman of HKU is this an intimidation tactic by the police? As for the recent dispersals and checks conducted by or inspections conducted by the police, according to the guidelines, the police officers must be polite and they must preserve the dignity of those being searched. But in Taiwan, how a person was stopped by the riot police and he was pushed down the staircase. And last weekend in Wong Tai Sin, some people were forced to kneel down for a search. So why was that necessary? Was it an excessive use of force, and was it against the guidelines? In the last few nights, there were dispersal operations at Wong Tai Sin and Shep Shui Po. The citizens stood on the pavements, but they were yelled at, and they were accused of, they were accused of pretending to be passers-by. And last night, a mother was looking for her son in Shep Shui Po, and she was yelled at by the police, and the officer pointed the pepper spray canister at her, and she was retreated, and yet the person involved was pushed on the ground and attacked. So the force reaching a tipping point. And with regards to the applicant of a rally, and there have been more and more attacks on Lennon Walls at the Mayfu Lennon Wall. Recent days, a person was attacked with a baseball bat by an assailant. The assailant was arrested. As for people beaten up by the assailants, they were arrested for taking part in an unlawful assembly. If the laser pens or the alleged laser guns are considered weapons, why would an attack with a baseball bat be considered a common assault? So are you encouraging the assailants to keep attacking or even slashing people? Well, I believe you asked 4 questions.
First, on arrests, I'll take that question first, and then Mr. Gong will take the other 2 questions. In the past 2 months, for violent protests and attacks, as mentioned, the police has arrested over 900 persons. Apart from immediate arrests, on violent incidents that took place on different days, we keep carrying out follow-up action. That include the 29th of June, 25th of June, besieging the PHQ, the 1st of July, damage to electrical, the 21st of 7 attacks at Yunlong, and also another violent incident in Shangwan, and also the 13th of August, violence at the airport, etc. For violent clashes, the police have been carrying out relevant investigation, and we've been discussing with the DOJ on various violent incidents to monitor the progress of these cases. Our overriding principle is whenever there is sufficient evidence, we will make arrests. Every week, it's not just at weekends, even on weekdays, there are public activities. For the date of arrests and also the progress of investigation are not related. When the police investigation and decision on time to make arrests will not be affected by public activities to be held at weekend. Well, breaking the law is breaking the law. When there is sufficient evidence, the police will have to make arrests and punish these people. In the past 2 months, we've arrested people with different political convictions and backgrounds. Please do not make any excuse for offenders. In the past 4 months, the police have been neutral in tackling law-breaking behavior. You may recall that every time we came out to meet the press after an incident, we would say that for all law-breaking behavior, we would certainly pursue to the very end, and we have honored our pledge. We are one by one catching these offenders. So once again, please do not find excuse for the lawbreakers. I will take the other 2 questions. First, the incident at Tai Wo Hao. According to information I have, on the 25th of August, that is a Sunday, some police officers were working in the vicinity, and when the police vehicle stopped there, some protesters shone at our police officers from a distance, and so our colleagues went to the source and chased down the protesters. Some fled to the vicinity of Tai Wo Hao MTR station, and we intercepted some of them and investigated. In the process, some intercepted persons got agitated, and there were struggles and scuffles. I have viewed the relevant footage. Somebody fell to the ground, and I couldn't tell why he had to struggle. And then he got up, and after a search, he was not found to be suspicious, so he was allowed to leave. And you mentioned Wong Tai Shin and Sam Shui Po as well. Late at night, there were people creating troubles outside Sam Shui Po station. I couldn't really tell the number of times that had happened. From various sources, we have seen people going out for a late night snack or for some dessert absurd. They gathered and stirred up trouble there. I think ordinary people would not bring along bricks and laser guns for a late night snack. It's just last night that some people hurled bricks at our police station there. So without choice, we had to disperse and arrest people. When the police carry out disperse and arrest actions, the purpose is to restore public order. And we will also appeal to people present to leave as soon as possible. However, people would deliberately get close to our police officers and provoke them with foul language and laser beams. This is useless and cannot help to ease the tension. And I think the purpose is obvious for all to see. Is for the purpose of provocation. So inevitably there will be scuffles, because in our disperse action they came near and we used appropriate force to disperse them. As I said, the purpose of our dispersal action is to restore public order. For people carrying bricks and laser guns for late night snacks and desserts, I don't see how they are contributing to social order. And as for the incident in Meifu, I've said a number of times that all arrests are based on evidence. If the person concerned has used that metal pole or a baseball bat, we would arrest him for assault. Whether it is a common assault or assault occasioning bodily harm or just wounding, we have to rely on medical reports afterwards. So it is not a question of deliberately arresting the person for a lesser or lighter reason, and the seriousness of the wound and the injuries will depend on medical reports, and we'll see whether there is any witness and any evidence from video recordings and so forth before deciding the charges to be pressed. And for most cases, we will seek advice from the DFJ first before laying charges. So the reason for arrest and also the charges to be laid later, well, I cannot be too clear about that now. I understand that social sentiments are not that favorable, and that's the reason for many violent acts. Now, we always condemn violence regardless of the political convictions and backgrounds of the assailants concerned. And in a violent case, does that mean that the person attacked can use disproportionate force to protect himself? Well, this is also regulated by law. Even if you're attacked, doesn't mean that you can tie somebody up and cause him serious bodily harm. And that explains why sometimes when our colleagues arrive at the scene, they'll have to examine the injuries suffered by the assailant concerned and to see whether the force used to protect the victim has been reasonable. Yes, it's true that somebody might have started the fight first, but whether the force and violence used afterwards is appropriate, this has to be taken into consideration. But you can rest assured, before pressing charges, if there is anything we are not sure, we will seek advice from the DFJ. What about in search? Why did you require members of the public to kneel down? And yesterday, the Gai Fongs, and I think the mother for sure was not carrying any weapon. She was only shouting out for her son. How come your police officer pointed at her with the canister of pepper spray? And The one who was beaten up, he did not have any laser guns, and is the emotion of police officers at a tipping point.
Well, we have answered the same question, and we have answered 3 questions from you already, so perhaps we would give the floor to other reporters.
Thank you. Reporter from China Daily. I want to ask the police, despite you've stressed before that there is no consideration of the timing of the arrest of Andy Chan, Joshua Wong, and Agnes Chow, but still, however, will the police worry that because of these 3 people are very high profile, so will the police worry that this may stimulate more people to go to the street tomorrow for unlawful assembly? And also, in the face of possible illegal assembly, what's the police latest deployment? Thanks.
I'll pass the floor to Officer to attempt the second question first.
Well, for tomorrow, basically there is a proposed but objected public events to take place. So basically, we will monitor and to assess if any violent people, they will try to take this chance, still come up to the street and to do anything illegal. So it quite depends on our intelligence. Now it's keep on doing and to assess the situations. But in the meantime, we have our sufficient manpower and equipment and logistics ready for any untoward incidents. But I have to stress that no matter for what happened today regarding the arrested mate, for the previous cases, is irrelevant to our planning. And I also will stress to those, if they try to stir up problem or even try to display their violence again on the street, it is totally illegal and unacceptable. And police will take very resolute actions at the ground. Thank you.
For the first question, I think I would like to mention the police are politically neutral. Basically, we will not consider one's background or political stance when we plan to arrest or prosecute an offender. And as I mentioned earlier in my question, basically, there indeed public order events happen every weekend. And so making arrest today or tomorrow or the day after tomorrow does not have any implication whether it will attract more people going onto the street. And I must emphasize that police are always impartial in our investigation. And timing of the arrest basically does not dictate our investigation. Once we got sufficient evidence, we will make an arrest. Thank you.
Now TV, please. I'd like to follow up on the incident in Sham Shui Po. Some police officers were photographed or filmed for yelling at citizens at the scene, and they said, "We just made more arrests." You said there should not be any provocation, but is this a problem on the police side? Would the mass arrest today encourage people to come out tomorrow for the rejected proposed rally? Would it extend to other areas, and would there be appropriate or corresponding deployments by the police? Thank you. Our officers often come into contact with citizens, and very often our officers would decide on their volume or tone based on the actual situation at the scene. Last night at Sham Shui Po, a group of people hurled bricks at our police station and violence was used. So in our dispersal operation, we had to adopt a firmer tone in asking people to leave. And like I said, and in our raids, the purpose is to restore order
一啲居民亦都唔希望真係一個禮拜7日都有人喺個區裏邊即係有一啲暴力行為或者喺度亂鬧嘅。
would not want to see violence every single day. So our purpose is to restore peace to the community. As to whether we need to announce the number of arrests, well, I did not hear the exact words or tone used. I believe it was a call for people to leave. It was merely a communication approach. I would defer to Mr. Kwok for the second question. You asked that with the many people arrested today, would that encourage more people to hit the streets tomorrow to voice their dissatisfaction? The arrests made today were based on cases already investigated upon and with evidence, and we have also obtained advice from the Department of Justice. Some of them have already made court appearances. So all the cases have undergone rigid investigation. I hope the public realize that we have tried to rationalize all public meetings and processions. According to our figures, more than 80% of the public processions and meetings were granted with a letter of no objection, but the situation tomorrow is different. From our experience over the past 2 months, or indeed especially in the past 2 weeks, things escalated quickly, and intelligence points out that many young people feel that tomorrow is a deadline, and as such, we made a responsible decision to ban the public rally and march. This wasn't an easy decision. We certainly don't want to make things difficult on purpose, and I hope the public would abide by the law. If you attend a banned rally or march or take part in an unlawful assembly, then you would be committing an offense. You can see over the past week there have been rallies and marches all over Hong Kong every single day. But tomorrow it's particularly vulnerable, and the public will be at risk. The freedom of holding a rally or march has not been jeopardized because of a particular incident. The only reason for this decision is that there will be a risk. A crime is a crime. Everyone should know whether they are acting in accordance with the law. The gentleman in black. I'm from CCTV. My question is, today we saw that a number of movement leaders were arrested. What would be the penalties they are subject to, and would they be allowed to go on bail? And will the police conduct further action facing the same charges? And for people inciting other people to take part in an unlawful assembly, some have already left Hong Kong. Would there be any follow-up action? And tomorrow is the 31st of August. On the internet, some people are encouraging people to hit the streets to take part in these rallies. So if people heed the advice, and would there be similar arrests as the one made on Joshua Wong? And where will police make deployments tomorrow? And in the press conference yesterday, and we mentioned that the personal information or data of more than 1,600 officers have been leaked or used inappropriately, and their families and children are placed in jeopardy if such private personal data are disclosed, and has the police investigated whether such data has been manipulated? I would take the second question first, and then I would defer to Mr. Kwok and Mr. Kong. With regards to the arrests made today, some arrestees have made a court appearance this afternoon. They were charged for inciting participation in an unlawful assembly or organizing or taking part in an unlawful assembly. Other arrestees were arrested for different offences. They are still being detained, and we could not say whether they would go on bail or they would be charged.
As regards whether there will be more arrests to follow, I'm afraid it is not appropriate for me to give any account now, because what we say here may tip off wanted persons to avoid our arrest. Arrests from last night to now is a result of violent acts done in the past. In the past 2 months, we've arrested people at the scene, and after investigation, gathering evidence, and discussion with the DOJ, we have been arresting offenders. And let me repeat once again that breaking the law is breaking the law. We will pursue to the very end people who have broken the law and punish them. You asked about the situation tomorrow. You asked whether there will still be members of the public coming out to take part in public events, and what is our deployment, whether we will take enforcement action and arrest people. As I said, there are many inciting articles online. Some talked about coming out for a stroll, seeing the flowers at Victoria Park, moving around freely, and having a religious event. Well, it doesn't matter. You have to understand the law. If you have breached the law, and if you are in a rally or march already objected to, then you are breaking the law. I hope you understand this, and please do not test the law. And we have sufficient manpower and resources. Depending on the circumstances and our analysis of intelligence, we will deploy appropriate tactics to ensure that the arrangement tomorrow will be perfect. Regarding doxing, I want to reiterate that cybercrimes are very often just the same as physical crimes, and so we will take such crimes very seriously. Regarding doxing cases and also cases referred to us by the Privacy Commissioner, we are following them up. From early July to now, our cybersecurity and investigation unit has carried out a number of operations. We have already arrested 15 male, 4 females aged between 16 and 40 years old for access to the computer with dishonest intent and disclosure of information, personal information without the consent of the data subject, criminal intimidation, as well as fraud. So we are following up these offences very seriously. From TVB. From last night to today, there have been a number of arrests and related to offences that took place before the 31st of August. Some of them are dissident leaders. Is it a move to intimidate protesters to stop them from coming out tomorrow? What about people strolling along in Causeway Bay tomorrow? Would that be regarded as a march? Have you considered that would incite more people or provoke more people to come out? Or do you think this is a way to calm down the unrest? I'll take the second question, and Mr. Kwok will take the first. I think we have answered this question a number of times today. The police is a law enforcement agency. For all arrests and prosecutions, we depend on evidence. You talked about making arrests before the 31st of August. This is because in the past couple of months, there have been a lot of violent confrontations. The police have been investigating, gathering evidence, and discussing with the DOJ on relevant evidence. When there is sufficient evidence, the police will take action. This has always been our principle in investigation and arrest. I have said that in the past 2 months, every weekend we had major rallies, and during weekdays we were also having smaller scale rallies and marches. So the date of arrest has nothing to do with the date of rallies and marches. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for us to make arrests and to take action. Once again, everyone in the community should remember this fact. When you've broken the law, you've broken the law. When this happens, when we have sufficient evidence, the police have the responsibility to arrest them and take them to court to be punished. I disagree with any excuse you try to find for them. We are a politically neutral body. Well, in major events, we said that in major events we will always pursue those who have broken the law, and we're just honoring our pledge. Regarding analysis of the situation tomorrow, some members of the public asked whether they can just walk around. I think we have seen such things recently, and when more than 100 people appear at the same place for the same purpose and engaging in a rude and marginal and even violent behavior, is such an activity lawful? On many occasions, we can't even identify their identity. We cannot confirm their identity. If there's so many people present at a public place, we can't understand whether they've come for the same purpose. However, in taking enforcement action, we have to ensure that it is reasonable and proportional. And I think there is an objective test for everyone as to why you should be at a particular place. It's not that we want to stop people from or we want to interfere with people's freedom to be on the streets. But as we all know, tomorrow is a relatively risky day. We don't want to see people deliberately breaking the law or to provoke the police and to engage in unlawful behavior, to take part in unlawful assembly and marches. We can enforce the law on spot at once, but we can also do so afterwards, after we have evidence. Apple Daily. A follow-up question. There was the question of whether people could walk around in the street, and you said that no excuse is significant. So is it true that tomorrow when someone dressed in black appears, at any place between Cheddar Garden and Chinese Liaison Office, he has already violated the law. Will there be a curfew tomorrow? If someone in black chants a slogan, is that forbidden? And can he eat somewhere near? How can you confirm that he's a genuine passerby and just happened to be in black? Are you going to make major arrests and to track down people tomorrow? Regarding the situation in Samshuipo last night, you said that the police officers had to be firm in speaking to the protesters. I'd like to show you a footage.
I don't think it's appropriate to play a video here. The young person was retreating and he did not conduct any acts such as hurling bricks as you claimed or conduct any aggressive acts, but he was constantly shoved by riot police and he was even removed from the crowd and being beaten up, and we didn't know whether he was even arrested. The police said, ask the citizens to exercise their conscience tomorrow. Are you going to tell the police officers to do the same tomorrow? Was such acts an act of abuse of force or violence? You asked whether there would be mass abusive arrests tomorrow, like you claimed, or whether we would target those in black. Wearing black is not unlawful. Some of you here are already dressed in black. Our focus tomorrow is whether anyone would intentionally breach the law. And this doesn't just apply to people on the street. Some people might be doing exercise or having a stroll on the street. But if anyone uses an excuse to mask the fact that they have committed an offense, that would not be tolerated. We have to make this very clear. I think it's always common sense to exercise conscience as a human virtue. As for the situation at Samshuipo yesterday, like I have said a number of times, there were violent episodes. That's why we conducted arrests and dispersals. And in the meantime, we constantly urged peaceful people to leave. And our goal was to restore order. As to whether the person in question was retreating or whether he was retreating slowly or whether he was intentionally coming very close to our officers, I think you have to ask that person. In the meantime, we kept urging everyone to leave. That's something I stress. People were gathering or surrounding the Samshuipo police station for many straight nights, and they used laser beams. So what were they actually doing? Are they trying to create trouble or create chaos for the community? Well, I have watched that video, and when our officers were advancing, one of our officers felt that the person in question didn't want to leave, and as such, we advanced. So there was some kind of confrontation, and that person was allowed to leave eventually. He was not arrested. There were many similar episodes in recent times. Since the order of our community has been disrupted, and since we have urged peaceful people to leave, then I hope everyone would be cooperative by leaving peacefully. When order is eventually restored, then our officers would certainly not be willing to carry out any action. Last two questions. I'm from Xinhua Agency, Hong Kong branch. I have three questions. First of all, I have a question for Mr. Chair, the Chief Superintendent. We know that yesterday and today a number of arrests were made. I want to know about some of the details. Andy Chan was arrested at the airport yesterday. When he was arrested, was he trying to leave Hong Kong? That is whether was he trying to flee Hong Kong? As for Joshua Wong and Agnes Chow, when they were arrested, did they resist the arrest? That is the first question. The second question is about the photo shown by the police just now. Some protesters were holding a weapon that looked like a gun. We know that guns are controlled items in Hong Kong. Was it an air gun? If they were holding an air gun, that would be threatening police officers. So what offense would they have committed? The third question is for Mr. Derek Chan from the Fire Services Department. In the video, we saw that petrol bombs and other weapons were used by protesters. From the perspective of the FSD, so what are the dangers of using such weapons? Let me answer the first question. For the second question, I would defer to Mr. Kwong, and then Mr. Derek Chan for the third question. First of all, the arrest made at the airport was made when the person in question was departing Hong Kong. For the two other persons you mentioned, I have no information on whether they resisted arrest. Mr. Kong, please. In Hong Kong, there is strict control on firearms and ammunition. Could we tell whether the weapon or firearm was genuine or fake from the photo alone? Well, I cannot comment on that. I understand some people would keep toy pistols or toy guns, but for the person carrying an air gun or a imitation gun, it depends on their intent. Last week, around Kowloon Bay, there were violent clashes. Someone was carrying a gun. We didn't know whether it was real or fake, and very likely that would be a reach of offenses such as possession of counterfeit guns. I stress that if you carry a gun, whether it's real or not, it would be dangerous to the person himself. We have always stressed that the level of force exercised by the police depends on the violence used by the perpetrators. If we could not tell whether the gun was real or fake, at that time, it would be reasonable for us to use a higher level of force. So please do not try to create chaos. Mr. Chan. As for the use of petrol bombs or flare bombs or other dangerous goods by protesters, petrol bombs can lead to a fire. If the fire spreads to surrounding buildings, there could be mass casualties. As for other dangerous goods, some items might stimulate our respiratory tracts or skin, as well as our eyes. So we urge protesters not to use these dangerous goods. And once again, we urge other citizens to stay well away from the areas concerned, and they should stay vigilant and protect themselves. Last question, please. Oriental Daily. Good afternoon. The police rejected the CHRF rally and march planned for tomorrow, and the ground given is to ensure order and safety. If there is chaos or even greater chaos tomorrow, does it mean there is an error on the part of the police's judgment, and that is the right to gather and march of the peaceful people will be affected? Ms. Chang talked about the accusations of rape or indecent assault. You categorically rejected such accusations. On what grounds did you reject such accusations? And is there any evidence? Bullying on campus has always been an issue, and do you feel that the children of police officers enjoy certain privileges? I would defer to Mr. Kwok for the first one, and then Mr. Kong and Ms. Chang.
Although we have opposed the rally and march planned for tomorrow, and should chaos erupt, does that mean that our judgment has been wrong and we've deprived the public of the right to freedom of expression? No, what you say is wrong, because we must take a precautionary approach. We are of the view that tomorrow is a risky day, and there is the possibility of massive breaking of the law. It is our responsibility to prevent such things from happening. And we've also got the endorsement of the Appeals Board. They have already rejected the application for an appeal. So we will, of course, deploy sufficient manpower and resources tomorrow. We will continue to gather evidence and follow up and keep track of developments tomorrow. We will make timely intervention and take enforcement action. We may not take enforcement action at once, but for sure in a timely manner. Should chaos start to happen, we will take immediate and more enforcement action to stop the chaos at once, to restore peace to society. Regarding accusations of rapes, indecent assault, I have to say that our sentiments in society have been very unhealthy. There are many anonymous complaints. They can make very serious complaints, and I won't quote examples here. For such serious accusations, if we still accept anonymous complainants who hide themselves behind face masks, making it impossible for law enforcement agencies to investigate, we are only creating chaos. Well, I appeal to these complainants. If they have such serious allegations, I beg them to come forward and let us have the information so we can investigate. Earlier on, we refuted such allegations in press briefings because these complaints are totally unsubstantiated by any evidence. If they do have evidence, do show us, and we will take them very seriously and follow up. Madam Zhang, can you please repeat your question? Bullying on campus is always an issue, and you talked about bullying of children of police officers. Are you saying that they enjoy special privileges? Well, the police have always taken bullying on campus very seriously, and we have very close liaison with schools and the Education Bureau. Every year at the start of a new school term, we will alert social workers as to the possibility of bullying, but it's because of recent social sentiments and confrontations, and we've also noted comments directed against children of policemen, bullying and very inciting remarks and police officers are concerned. And therefore, with internal guidelines, so that we can support families and children of police officers emotionally and psychologically. And if there is any accusation of bullying, we will deal with them in a fair and impartial and open manner. Thank you. The press briefing ends here.